Hi friends, Sarah here from Sunset Bow. I just wanted to do a quick walkthrough of a new deck that I acquired just this past week, and this deck is called the Pear Oracle. So the main reason that I really wanted to do a walkthrough of this particular deck is because before I ordered it, I went looking for a walkthrough of it on YouTube, because obviously I like to see all the cards before I decide to buy a deck, and I actually could not find a single video about this deck, which was really surprising to me because it's done by a creator that's relatively well known and has done other tarot decks in the past, but it just seemed like this is a resource that we needed. So I decided that I would go ahead and make a video about this one. So this is the Pear Oracle. This is by Peony Coin Archer, who is also well known as the creator of the Efflorescent Tarot. She also created the Little Monsters Tarot, which is a deck that I absolutely love. It's actually, in fact, the first YouTube video that I made on this channel was a unboxing and walkthrough of the Little Monsters Tarot, which was last summer, almost a year ago, which is really kind of fun to think back on. But I absolutely love her artwork, and so when I realized that she had an oracle deck, I decided that I would kind of snap it up. And so again, this is the deck. It's called the Pear Oracle. It comes in this craft paper box, so I actually got a bag for it because I never keep stuff in tuck boxes. But so on the back here it says the Pear Oracle. This oracle deck contains 44 cards with individual illustrations by Peony Coin Archer and an accompanying booklet with card meanings and prompts. Named for a small sapling that grew in front of the house where these cards were illustrated, the Pear Oracle offers small gestures of guidance for daily life. And then it says this deck is printed at a small family press in Minnesota and assembled with much care in Peony's kitchen. For more information about this deck, visit peonyarcher.com. Honestly, I think she has like the coolest name. Peony Coin Archer. Like, that's the coolest name I've ever heard. But anyway, so it comes in this little craft paper box. And then it also comes with a little booklet, which is small. You know, it's really just a little white book, but I actually really like what she's written about the individual cards. Now, I will say this book, you know, it really doesn't have any spreads in it or anything, and she's really actually, when she talks about using these cards, she says, draw a few cards in the morning to begin your day, tuck a favorite into a novel as a bookmark and reminder, visit them only rarely in times of great crisis or joy, or give one card each to many friends. There is no wrong way to use this deck. Its goal is to be a thing of value and beauty in your life, and that may work in many different ways, which I think is actually really cool. You know, basically no particular intention for how this deck needs to be used, so there aren't any spreads or instructions for doing readings or anything like that. It's just very, very open-ended. But I do really like how she's written about the different cards, and we'll take a look at some examples as I go through the deck. But the way that she's written about the cards really gives you a lot of different ideas as far as things that you can draw on in terms of interpreting the cards, which I think is really cool. So to take a look at the cards, here are the card backs. So much like most of her decks, these are printed on relatively glossy cardstock. They're really quite glossy. So they are quite large. I just grabbed Hude's tarot card in comparison. This is a standard size US Games card, and you can see that it's quite a bit wider and also a bit taller than this card, and also the corners are a lot more kind of rounded. So they are a big card, definitely, which is similar to the Efflorescent Tarot. The Little Monsters Tarot is actually quite tiny. It's more of a poker-sized deck, but her other tarot, as well as this, have larger cards on them. I will say that I'm not entirely sure that the back is exactly maybe how she wanted it to look. I'm guessing that the intention was for it to look a little more intricate, like the design here, or the design on the box. But the way that this got printed, the center of it got just kind of very dark. But it is, you know, it is still a pretty backing. And again, you can see that it's very intricate in terms of her drawings. So I'm going to go through these cards. I'm going to do my best to do this without getting any glare on them, but that can be a little bit difficult with this glossy of a deck. So you can see each of the cards has this rose and leaves border around the artwork, which is very pretty. I mean, it's this very pretty sort of intricately drawn border. This is a fully black and white deck, so you can see all of the artwork is very, very detailed, and it is all, you know, pen and ink drawings done in black and white, and you can see just how kind of intricate all of these drawings are. And I actually just wanted to take a look at the what the book says about this particular card, because I do really like the way that she discusses the cards and the sort of wide range of meanings she gives to them. So about abandon, she says, we see a house overgrown with moss and leaves. Turning this card may signify abandonment, yours or others, but could also mean real abandon, as in wild abandon. You may have let things go, not only to be untended, but also to be free. There can be a power and wildness in standing alone. Remember this and use that power as you need it in your daily life. So, I really like that because it gives you lots of different ideas in just a few sentences for different takes that you can have on the card, and different meanings, potential meanings of the word abandoned, both positive and negative. So I really like that about it. So I'm just going to go ahead and flip through these cards. And again, do my best not to get any glare on them. But we have mistrust. You can see the way that she draws people. Again, I think it's one of those things that you either love or not like. Her people all have these very sort of long, weird fingers, and they all tend to have very melancholy expressions. So, again, it might be one of those things that you really resonate with. I personally love it, and I really resonate with it, but probably not everybody would. But we have mistrust. We have the gift, and again, you can sort of get a sense as to how some of the people that she draws occasionally look a bit creepy, and it's hard to tell whether or not they are creepy or not. And the other thing about her artwork too is that it is the kind of artwork that you have to spend some time with. Like, it's not always immediately apparent, because these drawings are so intricate, what is actually going on. But when you do spend time looking at it, you're going to find a lot of little details and interesting things that, maybe you wouldn't see if you just took a glance at it. So like here, for example, in this history card, you can see that this is a figure of a person wearing this sort of large headdress, and then they're walking up a path, but ahead of them on the path is another person, or maybe the same person. It's hard to say. But it's the kind of thing where you do need to spend a little time and sort of look at it, because it is relatively busy artwork. But I enjoy that. I actually really like that about this artwork, and I like the time that you spend with it. So this card is Facing Fears, Transmutation, Apathy. This one's kind of interesting to me. It's this person, they're sort of looking apathetic. They're in a burning boat. They don't seem to care, but obviously, is a burning boat all that dangerous when you're just floating on water? Probably not. So, Shape-Shifting. This is a really cool card. Thicket. I love this one too. This is another one where it took me a little while to pick up on what was going on, because I had to spend some time looking and then realize that this is actually a person. There's a side profile kind of from the back of a person, and they're wearing this very elaborate costume, and they're sort of in a forest, in a thicket of branches, which is very cool. Hearth, and this is a city scene with lanterns and washing on the line. I really like that one. Dawn. Dreams. This one is so cool. It took me forever to see what was going on in this picture, but you can kind of see that there's actually a person in this drawing. She's lying on her side. This is her face, like eyes, nose, mouth. Her hair, her hand lying next to her face, and then there's all these buildings and different things sort of growing out of her hair. I just think it's really a cool image. Here's Midnight. I really like this one. It shows a girl running along the streets with her dog, or a wolf maybe. The Oracle. Management. Travel. Shelter. This is another one where it took me a second to figure out, what was going on in the image, but there's a figure here who has their arm around this other figure that's kind of lying down or sort of snuggled up with them, and it's a really pretty image, but you don't know if they're people or creatures or they're wearing masks, or it's just really hard to say. This one is Wisdom. Wildness. This one reminds me a lot of Little Monsters Tarot, which I have always said is a deck that has a lot of wildness to it. Knowledge. I think this one is really cool. She's sort of holding a book and there's light streaming out of it onto her face. The Divine. Time. This is another one where it took me a second to figure out what was going on, but there's a person walking down a pathway and they've come upon an old boat which is kind of broken down and it's filled with plants. So it sort of shows how things can change their purposes over time. The Spire. I really like this one. I find this really evocative. This is such a cool card. Complication. Sadness. This one you can see it's like a person who's maybe it's a fox and they're holding a dying animal and then their chest is like split open, which I think really makes you understand that feeling of sadness, you know, sort of your heart being exposed to the elements. Growth. This is one where I think that the printing is a bit too dark and it's very hard to see what's going on. What is actually going on is that there's these sort of scaffoldings built and then they're connecting all of these different rocks, but it is quite difficult to see what's going on. Here's Sunset. The Lighthouse. Noon. Indecision. Entrapment. Generosity. And this one I think is interesting because there's these hands and then these two birds, and it's hard to say if the hands have released the birds. There's also this insect. Have the hands released the insect? Are they offering something to the insect and the birds? Is the insect something they offered to the birds? Like, there's a lot of potential things going on here. And changes. I also really like this one too, because it shows there's two different figures. There's this one and then this one, and this one almost looks like a shadow representation of this person. And then there's this sort of confluence of planets in the sky, and then you can see that it sort of shows almost an autumn landscape. These almost look like hay bales, and then there's these trees that have lost their leaves. So it's a really, really cool image. Wait. Nightmares. And this one's also really interesting. It's hands reaching out to this person who looks like they have been pierced potentially by a lot of different sort of jagged pieces of glass or something. Friendship. And these two people are apparently friends with a anthropomorphized rabbit. A conversation. I really like this one. And it shows this woman sort of coming out of the thicket and into the woods and a rabbit that she's having a conversation with. The Path. I love this one because, you know, this person is like walking down the path. It looks like they're in their nightgown or something. They're wearing a mask, and then there are all of these little creepy creatures up in the trees, and then there's this sort of ghostly figure down here, and I just think that's a really, really cool picture. Discovery. This is another one that has a ton of detail when you start looking at it. Like, there's actually a bird in the bush down here. This person is actually, they're holding a compass. They've got feathers in their hair. They've got a tattoo. You know, there's there's just a lot of stuff kind of going on that makes it a really interesting picture with a lot to think about. Choice. Celebration. You can see this one sort of looks like a street party with lanterns, and there's a couple of little creatures down here that seem to be having a good time. There's some fireworks. Bravery. This is another one that I think is really interesting. This person is like catching a falling star out of the sky right in their hand. Farewells. In this case, it looks like this girl is potentially letting go or maybe saying goodbye to this fox that she's holding. And maybe she's letting it go back into the wild. And then finally we have Society. And this one, this is a picture, a lot of her artwork can sometimes remind me of Edward Gorey. And this one does in particular, where there are these sort of details going on kind of in the background. You have these characters in the foreground where it's hard to tell what's going on with them. They seem to maybe be the same person or not. You're not sure. Are they twins? Why do they look so melancholy? And then there's these people in the background that seem like almost as though they're having an argument. And so there's just, again, a lot of interesting stuff, a lot of detail in all of these images. And, if this is the kind of artwork that resonates, I think it's really, really cool. For me, I really, really like this artwork. But again, it's the kind of artwork where it's very intricate, it's very busy, and you do have to spend some time looking at it to sort of see all the details. So I do think it's a really cool deck. Again, it is very glossy. The cardstock is... it's quite bendable, but it doesn't feel super thin or anything, and it is quite laminated, but it does make it relatively easy to shuffle because it is quite bendy, so it's a pretty easy shuffle. So I'm going to turn a card over, and we got farewells. So I'm just going to read what it says in the book about this card. Farewells. A figure holds a fox close, looking out to a rocky sea, netted birds caught in her hair. Whether she is saying goodbye or has recently seen someone go is unclear, but what remains is her expression, a resigned sadness that is tinged by the knowledge that there are times and places for goodbyes, and that an end does not ruin the time that was had. Practice saying goodbye to that which you must depart from, or you risk becoming one of the birds, trading liberty for the security of a tether. So you can see how she has these birds in her hair. So anyway, so again, a very, very interesting deck with a lot going on in the artwork. And I absolutely love her artwork and have enjoyed her other decks. So this one was definitely one that I knew that I was going to end up getting. So anyway, that's the Pear Tree Oracle. So thanks so much for watching, everybody. Have a great one. Bye-bye.